Hello, I'm Victoria from Biblio Lifestyle, and you're listening to the Reader's Couch podcast, the show that will help you bridge the gap between living a full and busy life to one where you're reading, learning new things, and having fun. In today's episode, I'm sharing the audio from my recap of episode 2 of Apple TV's Lady in the Lake. If you missed the episode 1 recap, you can just go back to the feed. It's available there. But if you're interested in seeing the visuals, seeing my expressions, seeing the screenshots and pictures of the characters that I share during my recaps, head over to my YouTube channel. Episodes 1, 2, and 3, all those recaps are available now for your binging pleasure. And you can tune in on Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. That's 2 p.m. New York time, depending on where you are in the world, to recap the latest episode of Lady in the Lake until the limited series comes to an end. So if you're watching Lady in the Lake, if you read the book, or if you just watched the series on Apple TV Plus, join me every Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on YouTube for a detailed recap of everything happening in this series. Now, Apple TV Plus's Lady in the Lake is a drama thriller miniseries, and it's an adaptation of Laura Lippman's popular 2019 thriller novel of the same name. Now, this series is starring Natalie Portman in her first TV role, alongside Moses Ingram, Ilan Noel, and many others. In this series, you'll see what happens when a young girl goes missing in Baltimore on Thanksgiving Day, 1966. And we also see how the paths of two women cross in a really dramatic way. Now, in the series, we meet Maddie Schwartz, who's being played by Natalie Portman. She's a Jewish housewife trying to move past her old life and start fresh as an investigative journalist. We also meet Cleo Johnson, who's being played by Moses Ingram, who is a mother dealing with the politics of Black Baltimore while trying to support her family. Now, at first, their lives seem very separate, but when Maddie becomes obsessed with two mysterious deaths, we see things start to take a turn and endangers everyone around them. So again, in this episode, I'm sharing the audio from my recap of Apple TV Plus's Lady in the Lake that I do over on YouTube. I would love for you to join me every Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time to recap the series until it comes to an end. And you can also stay tuned on YouTube for more book-to-screen adaptation recaps as well. But anyways, let's get into the episode where I do a recap of Lady in the Lake. It has to do with the search for Marvelous. That's the title of episode 2 of Apple TV's Lady in the Lake. And in this episode, we're slowly picking up speed with the overall storyline. Yes, I will say it's still slow. We're still character building, but I feel a lot more is moving ahead in this episode than it did in episode 1. Because quite honestly, after watching episode 2, I was like ready for episode 3. I was ready to binge. However, of course, that wasn't available. And as opposed to when I finished episode 1, I was just like, it's okay, I can wait, which is also part of the reason why we have a 2-part recap for episodes 1 and 2, even though they dropped both episodes at the same time. Again, episode 2, I felt we were picking up some speed. We had more things happening, and we ended episode 2 on a cliffhanger, I would say. This is one where we see what happens after the police show up and they find Tessie Durst's body at the lake. We also get a flashback to 1947 when Maddie was in school working on her school paper, because again, she was like her school's like an up-and-coming journalist at her school's paper. Like I said, we get more on what happens with Tessie Durst. We see Dora spilling the tea that Mr. Gordon has helped finance Mrs. Summers' campaign, where I was like, the tension in that political gathering, something told me there was more there. So clearly Dora spills the tea, so we know what happens. We also see someone being arrested for what happened to the young girl who died. We also see Cleo getting herself in some trouble, first partnering with her man and getting herself in trouble. But needless to say, like I said, episode 2 gave us a lot more to chew on, in my opinion. I felt like we were moving quite a bit. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see where this series goes. So again, if you're just joining me, I am covering episode 2 of Apple TV's Lady in the Lake. I have thoughts on this episode. It was moving, and I can't wait to dive in some more. So in today's chat, in today's live, I will be talking about Apple TV's Lady in the Lake. Again, I think episode 2 kind of really started to pick up some speed. We started to see more things happening. So I'm excited for that, if I'm honest. So I'm really interested in hearing your thoughts. If you are watching Apple TV's Lady in the Lake, live watchers, replay crew, let me know in the comments, what did you think about episode 1? I did an episode 1 recap already. That's in a separate live. For our replay crew, I'll include a link to that live as well. I'll also include it in the show notes. But right now, we are recapping episode 2. If you also read the book Lady in the Lake, I would love to hear from you. Also, how do you feel about book-to-screen adaptations? Because I know it's quite a thing. I used to have very strong thoughts, but I feel like now I'm just approaching it as unique storytelling. You know what I mean? Yeah, so let me know what you think about Lady in the Lake. Okay, so episode 2 starts with a recap of episode 1. Naturally, that's what you get. We get recaps. And then we see the scene starting to set. So after we get through the whole recap bit, now we flash back to a younger Maddie. Yes, I have something up here. Yes, let me pop that right there. We recap to a younger Maddie. So the year is 1947, and young Maddie is a budding journalist at her high school. But again, the opening quotes, I have to say this series really does it with the opening quotes, because the opening quote caught my attention. Let me see if I can bring it up here. The opening quote is, "Nothing is less real than realism." And we see Maddie's high school boyfriend, Alan Durst, who is the man, in front of the camera, the shadow looking at Maddie. That's Alan Durst, Maddie's high school boyfriend. Now, Alan is Tessie's father, right? And we know Tessie is the missing girl, who we now know is dead because Maddie found her at the lake in the future. So that's 1966. But it's 1947 now, and she's in high school, and she's a budding journalist. Her boyfriend is there, and we see like the relationship dynamic, so to say. What I took away from this scene is that Matt is not exactly like a goody two-shoes, like how she's being portrayed, because the vibe I was getting from episode 1 is that like she's a good housewife, like she's a good Jewish housewife. But you realize in this scene, high school version of Maddie is that, she wasn't as clean and as goody two-shoes as she would like to appear. But anyways, we also see Maddie getting ready to interview her boyfriend's mother. So even he was saying, oh my gosh, you're doing a lot to prepare. But she's going to meet the mother because she is very captivated by the mother. And this is the mother, by the way. So this is the boyfriend's mother. And she's captivated by her art. Maddie describes her artwork as surrealist. And she's there to interview the mother about her artwork and everything that she's doing so that she can write a paper about it. Apparently, Maddie's very gifted. She's been featured in local publications. So she's really interested in speaking with someone who she admires, who happens to be her boyfriend's mother, about her art. Now, I found this sit down very interesting, right? Now, like I said, Maddie describes her work as surrealist, but the boyfriend's mother, doesn't agree with the use of the word surrealist. So then she asked Maddie, what do you think that makes an artist a surrealist? And that's when Maddie says, and I think I have that quote here. No, I don't. It has to do with the search for marvelous, which happens to be the title of the episode. So the title of the episode is It Has to Do with the Search for Marvelous. So that's when Louise, the mother, the woman on the screen here, what could be less marvelous than trying to define yourself? Nothing else matters. more than your relationship with yourself. Because if you're not good with yourself first, you can't be good with anyone else. But I found it very interesting that the mom uses this opportunity to really quickly shift gears. And she starts to ask her, do you love my son? I know you're in a relationship with him. He is clearly very smitten with you. And it's quite obvious, if it wasn't to Maddie before, she does not approve of Maddie. Why she doesn't approve of Maddie, I don't know. But what I do know is she does not approve of Maddie, and it's very obvious. Now, during the interview, a telephone call comes in, and Mr. Durst comes in and takes his wife away to handle the phone call. So, of course, Maddie's just sitting there. So he takes this opportunity, right? This man takes this opportunity to then say to Maddie, oh, you're incredibly talented. You're really good at your work. I'm like borderline jealous. And to be honest, I didn't like the way he was chatting to her. He also went on to say, oh, if I was my son, I would take you to New York so you could get like a big break and all these different things. And I felt like the whole conversation was inappropriate. I'm like, sir, what are you doing? But so then the wife who was on the phone calls and says, oh, she wants to talk to you, meaning the husband. So he's getting ready to leave, but then he also says to her, ask his wife about so-and-so because it will get her talking, because Maddie was also at a stump with the wife. The interview proceeds, and then we see Maddie getting ready to leave. Now, as Maddie is leaving, and I guess this is, what do you call this? I guess you'd call this like foreshadowing. As Maddie is leaving, she's looking for Mr. Durst to say, thanks for everything, bye. And we see a scene with a yellow couch. Now, we saw in a flashback in episode 1, Maddie being young, like she was young, like teenager Maddie. So about the age where she is at now, laying naked on said couch in that episode. And we also saw a scene of a man like cleaning up what looks like blood. So that is very interesting. Like, I'm very curious. We also know from the previous episode that this guy who was just being a real idiot, being very douchey, grown man now, by the way, 1966 version. He was the man who was at the house when Maddie lost it. And he was saying that her high school boyfriend stood her up. So I'm like, this is a guy who stood her up. So he was saying like, oh, he was like the hero. He felt sorry for her. And he took her to prom. So I'm wondering what went down as to why the boyfriend stood her up for prom. We also now realize that yellow couch is in the husband's like study. We also see a whole bunch of paintings, and we see this one particular painting that he has of a young woman lying naked in the middle of the lake. And when you look at the face, it looks so much like Maddie, just really freaky. So I'm curious, what did you all think about this scene, this interaction that was happening, both from the interview with the mom, who clearly doesn't approve of her and she's dating their son, to the husband coming in and chatting, and to her leaving and realizing he has this painting with this woman that looks just like her? Let me know in the comments. If you're watching live, let me know. Replay crew, let me know in the comments as well. Let's continue the conversation about the Durst family, because clearly something is going on there. And again, remember, he is the father of the missing girl. So her high school boyfriend, ex-boyfriend, her high school boyfriend is the father of the missing girl. So now you're starting to wonder, is this part of the reason why she's so obsessed and invested? Obsessed is not the right word. Why she's so invested? Because part of me is feeling that's what the husband is thinking. So let me know what you think about the Durst family interaction. Okay, so moving on. So that was 1947 Maddie. Now the scene skips to present day Maddie at the lake. So Maddie was at the lake with, what's her name? I forgot her name. Judith. That's Judith right there. So Maddie was at the lake with Judith. And we remember from the last episode, they found the body at the lake. So Judith went off to get the police. Maddie is staying with the girl because she didn't want to leave her. And so the police show up. They're like, oh my gosh, you weren't lying. She is here. So then they start asking her questions and stuff like that. But before we even get to the police interaction, which again, pro-aggressions up to wazoo. If you're watching this now, you really do have to watch it with care, because this is set in 1966 and people didn't have the modern day sensibilities. Some people still don't have it, but you know what I'm trying to say. So we have this voiceover scene, and I love these powerful voiceovers, right? Because I feel it goes back to the initial quote about the lion telling the story. And until the lion tells its story, the hunter is the hero. So the quote that Cleo said is, "Who was she to you? You wanted to tell Tessie's story. You wanted to tell mine. You wanted to tell everyone's story but your own." And also, I'm like, yeah, because we get these little clips, right? We get these little clips of life. And clearly that flashback to 1947 when she was in high school, it shows us that there is a lot more to Maddie than she's initially telling. And she's very obsessed with telling the story of Tessie. We know in the future she's going to be very invested in Cleo, but it's very clear from Cleo's voiceover that she is chiding Maddie. Like, hands down, no question about it. She is just, sis, I see what you're doing. You're busy just focusing on everyone else and you're not telling us anything about you. It's also why I like this picture. I know this is like one of the big press pictures. Cleo, who is the Black woman, and Maddie, who is the white woman, it is so obvious that Cleo sees her, but Judith doesn't see her at all. And you can tell that Cleo is chiding Maddie, that she doesn't allow us into her life, but she's very focused on other people's lives. So anyways, we go back to the scene when these two get the police, they're at the lake, and they realize that, okay, yes, the girl is there. Microaggressions up to wazoo about, oh, you don't look Jewish and this and that. And it's just, it is wild. We also see the police taking them to the police station where they are being questioned. We also see where Officer Platt sees Maddie for the first time. So that scene is very notable, them seeing each other for the first time. Let me see if I can find the picture with Maddie and Officer Platt. Yeah, it's probably not on this thing. No. But this is when they actually meet. So I also found this interesting because I feel like it's setting up the stage for what's going to happen next. So anyways, moving on. We then see the scene switch to the Gordian. So the scene switches to the Gordian, and this is where Cleo works. Now, we see Cleo helping Dora up to her room. And I have multiple feelings about this scene. So obviously, like I said in the first episode, and we also saw that whatever Dora was on, she took too much. She was slurring her words on stage. It was a hot mess. But Cleo, her friend, is really helping her out. And we see them having a conversation about singing. Of course, Cleo, who is on the right of the screen in the picture, is helping undress Dora, helping her get ready for bed. Because again, whatever she took too much, she's out of it. She needs to sleep it off. And they're having a conversation. And Cleo is like worried, like, you better hope Mr. Gordon allows you to perform back again on stage after the stunt you pulled. And she's like, nah, I'm not worried. He'll have me back because, of her voice. And she does have a beautiful voice, but I'm also like, sis, no. So of course, Cleo is laughing at her and she's saying, no. The reason this happened is because you got in with Reggie. And Reggie is also a very important character. We're going to see more of Reggie soon. Let me see if I can get Reggie's picture up here so you all get familiar with Reggie, because Reggie has a lot going on. So the picture is uploading. So when Reggie pops up, I'll let you know. But she was saying it's because she's getting into it with Reggie, and that despite that performance, that was really bad, she'll get in because clearly Reggie is working for Mr. Gordon. She's also reminding her, hey, you've been singing at this club since you were 16. And I don't remember you getting anything for free. But since you and Reggie have been getting into things, obviously now you're getting a room here at the Gordian. You're getting free things that you shouldn't be taking and just all those different things. So anyway, so Cleo is no girl, that ain't it. But what stood out to me during their conversation is them dreaming of doing things together. And I loved her saying, oh my gosh, did you hear? Black people are leaving America and they're going to Paris to perform. And she's dreaming of both of them, these two friends, going to Paris together. This is her big dream. And she said, we can go there and we can make it. And these are two of them when they're at a political fundraising event, these two together. I was just thinking, if you had your friend, times are really hard and people are just discriminating at you left and right, dreaming of going to Paris is not a bad idea. And especially because there were lots of folks doing it at the time. I'm a lover of literature. I'm also a lover of the classics. And one thing for sure that is very well known is that you had writers like James Baldwin. You also had Richard Wright. These were Black men, Black writers who left the United States and went to Paris, and they left their mark on literature. Like, these are people that we study today, but also performers. So it wasn't like super far out for Dora for wanting this dream, because we had performers like Josephine Baker, who left a big mark. And I think what's his name? Sidney something. I forgot his last name. But it was a known fact. These people would go to Paris and leave their mark because they just wanted to escape everything that was happening in the US at the time. But during the kiki between girls, she let it slip that the senator, she didn't let it slip. She's just like letting her know, girl, this woman what you think she is, she's not it. And it's that Senator Summers, who Cleo was volunteering for, which is why she got in kind of trouble with her boss, being funded by said Mr. Gordon. So Mr. Gordon is like the big man in town. Half the people in the town work for him. He has legitimate businesses, but he's also involved in not so legitimate businesses. So to find out that Mr. Gordon paid for her campaign, I was, wait, what? She didn't believe it. But because Cleo is his bookkeeper, downstairs, she checked the books and she saw that a donation was indeed made. So of course, you can just imagine things are going through Cleo's mind. Okay. So then the scene changes. And we see Maddie now, because remember, we keep alternating between Cleo scenes, Maddie scenes, Cleo scenes, Maddie scenes, with a few other like in between scenes going on. But anyway, so in this scene, we see Maddie going home to get clothes for Tessie Durst's funeral. So they found Tessie Durst the night before. The next day is a funeral. We even see her son saying, what is the deal? Why do we need to have funerals, so soon? And of course, his mother explains why. But anyway, so she goes home to get clothes for the funeral. Her mother is there because her husband called her mother. The son is just, I don't know what to say about the son sometimes. I'm trying to be nice here. But they're basically on her about what is going on. It's clear that her husband is not listening to her. And he just called the mom for reinforcements because he knows the mom is going to have his back and convince her to come home, stay home. Because like we saw in the last episode, she left her husband, she moved out, and she's in this apartment in a completely different part of town. But anyway, so after we see the throwdown with the whole family about that, the scene switches to Tessie's funeral. And then we get another Cleo voiceover, right? And I found that one very interesting as well. She says, like many in our city, you are about to find out that you care more about the souls of the dead than those of the living. These Cleo voiceovers are full, absolutely powerful. And we see Maddie walking with her mom, who's like giving her advice. But again, the advice is really for them to stay in their marriage. We also see a scene where they see swastika on graves in the cemetery. And of course, that kind of really shakes them up. One of which Maddie's mom was like, I'm just so glad my mom isn't here to like see this happening in America. And these people are old enough to remember the war, to remember the Holocaust. Like, it was fresh for them back then. So to hear them say, a new chapter, like a new Nazi chapter organization has opened in their community, and then seeing like the symbols, defacing graves in the cemetery was rough. But when the scene really, gets to this point is that we see Tessie's mom. So the woman to the left of the screen, that is Tessie's mom. Again, Tessie is the girl who disappeared and then we found out died. Maddie found the girl. And this is a funeral, and Tessie's mom can't help but come over to her. Of course, Tessie's dad is Maddie's high school boyfriend. So we see a little moment when they see each other and like she looks away, but the wife is, no, I need to go speak to her. So we see the wife come over to Maddie. So Maddie's the one in the pillbox hat to the right. And she was saying like, oh, I heard you found Tessie. I heard that you refused to leave her side.
it is so clear that this mom is grief-stricken. It was so sad. She was like, oh, did you see her face? What did she say? Did she call for her mommy? You know, all these different things. And yeah, man, it was rough. It was rough seeing that moment and seeing the mom break down on Maddie. And again, she's grief-stricken. She's at her daughter's funeral, a little girl, like, oh my God, terrible. But we see the look on Seth's face. That is Maddie's son, who I said in the last episode, just, trash. But I'm starting to feel his feelings about certain things with his mom might be a bit valid. So my point of view on him obviously changed from the first episode recap. Again, if you haven't watched it, go watch it. But he walks away, after seeing his mom handling this grieving mother. I'm wondering, so let me know in the comments, like if you're watching and you watch this episode, let me know in the comments. Replay crew, I want to hear from you too. Do you think Seth walked away when Tessie's mom said to Maddie, oh, she's a good mom? Was that the trigger? Because I get what Tessie's mom was saying, essentially, that when she found her, she refused to leave her side. And we even remember her saying to Judith, when you're a mother, you'll understand, essentially, like she just didn't want to leave the little girl alone, even though it's obvious that she passed away. So I'm wondering if Seth hearing that Tessie's mom is saying to his mother, you're a good mother, if that was a trigger. Let me know in the comments, replay crew, let me know as well. That had me thinking. So after the last episode, me saying trash, I'm starting to look at him different. When he walks away, of course, the father sees it and he's like, what's going on? And we see the husband chasing after the son, and it's just this kind of weird, awkward scene. So let me know what you think about this funeral scene. Let me know. Let me take a sip. Yep, I'm really curious. What do you think about this funeral scene? But anyways, if you are recapping Lady in the Lake, it's on Apple TV Plus. Lady in the Lake is based on Laura Lippman's best-selling book of the same, of which I have on the floor down here, Lady in the Lake. This came out in 2019, read it at the time, loved it at the time. I'm a Laura Lippman fan. Okay, she writes something, I'm going to buy it, I'm going to read it. So let me know, how do you feel about book-to-screen adaptations? Let me know what you think about the actual show if you're watching it. Maybe you don't want to watch it. Let's talk about it. Now, we will be doing these Lady in the Lake episode recaps every Monday at 2 p.m. And then as they drop the episodes, we'll be just recapping it every Monday. So tell a friend to tell a friend. If you love drama, thrillers, little mini-series and things, come on here. Would love to hear from you. Would love to know your thoughts. All right, so the scene switches. So this is like a brief scene. It switches to the man at the fishing shop. Now, in the first episode, we saw Tessie go into this fishing aquarium shop, and she was looking at the fishes. She was even asking about seahorses and all these things. Yes, there was a black man in the store at the time. That is Reggie. Again, y'all will get to know and get to see Reggie and what he does and more as the season goes on. But we also see the owner of the store, which is this man. I feel he's not completely here mentally. And we see him at home getting into his bath at home with some little fishies. So he puts some water in his bathtub, put the fishies in there. He puts on this gas mask and he gets in the bathtub. Now we see his mother, clearly he lives with his mother, coming in and yanking him out of the bathtub. And she was like really going at him and saying he should be at the store. If he does this again, she's going to kick him out. He needs to go to the store and on. Okay. So then the scene switches again and we see Cleo going to Senator Summers' office. Now I have to tell you, Cleo, I love her outfits. Cleo is slaying. Let me see if I can upload the picture because I love that outfit. Yep, I labeled it Cleo in the hallway. We'll see if it uploads because for some reason, some of the pictures aren't really processing on the back end. Don't know why, but it is what it is. But we see her going to Senator Summers' office. Yeah, I found that whole little situation very interesting. I'm like, why is Cleo going here? She already knows where this is going to go, but we see her going and she is on a mission. I found the outfit. Yes, I love this outfit. I have to tell you, the fashions are fashioning, the filming, the cinematography. It is just a beautifully shot show, but I also love the fashions, okay? Her outfit is killing it. It's like this scene with the two of them. Again, the outfits are outfitting. But anyway, so we see Cleo. She's in the hallway. And we see her getting ready to go upstairs to Senator Summers' office. But before she walks in, she takes out her little flask out her bag. She takes a little swig. I'm guessing she needed some liquid courage for what she was about to do. And seeing how things play out, I'm like, yeah, I would need a sip too. But we also get another powerful voiceover moment. Let me see if I can. Yep. We get another powerful voiceover moment. And she says, my mama believed that to get a good job, I had to look as good as if I didn't have a care in the world. All women knew that secret. And then she's, paused. And then she said, you got your whole life pretending like that, didn't you, Maddie? I'm like, ooh, she is chiding Maddie. Like, she is not playing. Cleo is just like, I'm just going to put it all out there. It was just no joke. So she's like, you got your whole life pretending like that. So anyway, she makes it upstairs and she makes it to Senator Summers' office. So this is a scene with her in the office. And she basically shows up and says, I want to get a job here. I want to work here full time. And she's saying to her, I can't help you because you work for Mr. Gordon. So of course she's like, what you mean? Half this town works for Mr. Gordon. And then no, she can't hire her. That in itself was just like really frustrating because again, she's wanting to do the right thing. She's wanting to not have to do work for Mr. Gordon, who we know does dodgy businesses. Does the man have a legitimate business on the front? Yes. But is he also dodgy? Absolutely yes. And she made a huge impression at the fundraising event. So she's, yeah, give me this job. I can do it. And she basically tells her no because she's associated with Mr. Gordon. She also goes on to say other things. And then she's, you need to wait your turn. And of course, Mrs. Summer is trusting that she understands. But the fact that she's saying, no, I can't give you a job. You have to understand it's because you work for this man. Also telling her she needs to wait her turn, but then also is asking her to film a video supporting her campaign. I'm like, no, you have lost your mind. And that moment breaks Cleo. It breaks Cleo. And when she sits in front of the camera, like I have a camera in my face right now. When she sits in a camera, she's like this. My name is, I think it's Eunice. I'm not sure, Johnson. But everyone calls me Cleo because when Mrs. Summer, in fact, I didn't even know this. So when Mrs. Summer was her teacher, so clearly these two have a relationship going way back. Mrs. Summer was her teacher, but now she's a senator in government. And she called me Cleopatra. She said I was as beautiful as an Egyptian queen and Cleopatra. So everyone called her Cleo. And Cleo is beautiful. So I get it. But it goes back to what her mom was saying, like having to look good. And that's the only way you get ahead and keeping yourself together like you don't have a care in the world. But what they wanted her to say, she didn't say. And she also has this quote. And this is actually like the last quote I have. But it, again, really shook me because it also goes back to the things that the lady was saying at the campaign. But it's clear like she's saying one thing to voters, but clearly she's not living by that. So we see Cleo say, it seems the world is giving me a choice. I can hold on to my dignity or I can provide for them, meaning she can provide for her boys. It seems like the world won't let me do both. Now, holding on to her dignity has a lot to do with them saying earlier, her waiting her turn, doing things the right way, working for legitimate people, just doing everything, I guess you could say, according to the straight and narrow as to how they're presenting things. And it seems like the world won't let me do this the right way. She doesn't have full-time work at the department store where she's the mannequin, she's a model, in the glass, which is what we see her doing here. She doesn't have full-time work there. She comes and she asks Mrs. Summer for full-time work, working on something she actually believes in. And she's, I can't hire you because, and this won't look good. So then I can hold on to my dignity or I can provide for my family. I have a choice here because it's clear to the world I can't do both. She was hoping to do both by working for this campaign and getting paid so she can be able to take care of her family. But The world isn't affording her to do both. So what does she do? She basically just tanks the campaign's moment to film her like endorsing Mrs. Summer and saying all the wonderful things she's doing. And she's just like, I'm not playing along. And we see them all shocked in the recording room when she says what she says. But so we see her just being very angry, very bitter. I don't blame her in the least bit. And we also see her crying and breaking down, and then she leaves. So that's that scene. Then the other scene we have, it switches now to Maddie, because we just had this whole Cleo thing and we see Cleo breaking. But we also have a Maddie scene where we see Maddie breaking as well. So Maddie has been driving around town trying to sell her car. She needs money. And she just goes around to every car mart and she is purchased my car. The car is in her name. Very important fact. The car is in her name, but every car shop is selling her. She can't sell it. Her husband needs to sign. Her husband needs to sign. It doesn't matter if she even lowers the price to just get rid of it so she can get some money. All they keep saying is her husband needs to sign. Again, 1966. It is just terrible. It's like today's day. Even though you might have something in your name, you go to certain places, they will be like, they'll ask about husbands if they know like you're still married. Less places nowadays in the US, but I can tell you outside of the US, you have some people, they still won't do certain things without your husband. So I find it very interesting, just, the misogyny. I know it's probably a hard pill to swallow for people nowadays, but, that again, 1966, that's the setting. Because her husband won't give her money, her mother can't help her, and we see her at her wit's end. So what does she do? She stages a robbery in her apartment in hope to cash in on the insurance. I'm like, this woman, oof. But yeah, she does it. She stages a robbery there. And I'm like, wow, okay. I guess you got to do what you have to do. Let me see if I can find Officer, because that's where Officer Platt comes in. Yes. Okay. Let me see if I can get that uploaded in the meantime. But so, like I said, she's trying to sell her car, can't sell her car. No one's helping her with money. So she comes up with this plan. She goes to her apartment. She ransacks the place. She takes off her rings. She puts it in this pot, like a potted plant, like she hides it in the dirt. And she goes downstairs to a diner. She uses the phone because she doesn't have a phone in her apartment, and she calls the police. And she's like, I've been robbed. Send the police. I'm afraid to go up in my apartment. And that's the whole thing. Now, I found that so funny. But that's when we see Cleo, she's the one in a pillbox hat, meeting Officer Platt. Officer Platt is quite an interesting character. Okay, very interesting. And we see Officer Platt at the end, but I'm not going to spoil it right now. But anyway, so she does that, and that's a whole robbery situation. Now, while she goes in the diner to make the call to the police, we see their lives intersect again. Remember, we see Maddie and Cleo's lives intersecting when she was the model in the window in the mannequin. However, now we see another intersection, and I also found that very interesting. We see Cleo's eldest son, Teddy, collecting bets for this illegal betting scheme called the numbers game. Now, I don't know it by the numbers game. I know it by other names, but essentially they use like their dreams and their interpretations of the dreams, and they have numbers like in the book. So if you have a dream and it matches with something, you have the numbers and you bet on it. Now, apparently it's illegal, and it's an illegal betting scheme. And at the same time, we see Senator Summers on a little television in the diner, saying at the same time that the numbers game is illegal and that it's taking money out of the pockets of poor and vulnerable people, and she's not about that life. So we see like a big intersecting moment in the diner right there. So I found that very interesting. And then the scene switches again, and we see Cleo going to Mr. Gordon. So Mr. Gordon is the man on the left. Cleo there in her beautiful outfit that I shared with you all earlier, because I just love that outfit. She looks good. To ask for more work. And he's all about, I got to trust my people. I have to this, I have to that. And yes, so I found that whole thing interesting. It goes back to what she said in the last bit, that her dignity is what matters to her. Dignity, she has to push that aside. So now it's all about her providing. So for her, she has to go to Mr. Gordon for work. And that's exactly what she does. But while she's there, she sees her son, Teddy, because she's going to Mr. Gordon off hours. She's not there to start working and doing her shift. So she sees her son, and we see her losing it on him about taking bets. And we see that scene play out. Then the scene switches to Maddie and the police. So the police arrive, one of which, Officer Platt, and he's taking her report, investigating about her robbery situation that she claimed. But he knows she was not robbed. Like, he even knows that with the insurance she probably wants. He even goes on to say, you do know you're not going to get like this insurance money right away. It's obvious he was taking it easier on her. And then the scene switches, because again, we go between Maddie and Cleo. It's a lot of going between Maddie and Cleo. We see it switching to where Cleo is meeting up with Slappy. Yeah, I have this picture. I actually love seeing this picture with the two of them. For me, this was like a great moment. We also see her in her new blue coat that she got from Mr. Gordon, because he heard about her meltdown and her kind of sabotaging the ladies' campaign. So he's, okay, I'm happy. I will give you more work, all the things. So he also gifted her that new blue coat. But I love this scene with her and Slappy as well. That's later on. But she meets up with him, and I'm just using the picture for reference, but she meets up with him telling him that Mr. Gordon is okay with him doing a comedy gig at the club. So she mentions to him, I just want us to focus on the boys. She wants to bring their family up out of poverty, and she needs him to step with her. And he agrees. He's okay, I'm going to do this. And the picture up on screen is the gig that it's right before he goes on stage to do his comedy act. Now, the scene switches to Maddie again. Now, this time, she's at her apartment and a reporter shows up looking for a story because, again, she was the person who found the dead girl. Actually, her and Judith, these two, they found her. However, there's some rumor out there that they're lovers and something went wrong. And he is just obviously looking for a story. Now, I have a question, and I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments if you watched it. Do you think she told the detective do you think she told the reporter what Officer Platt had told her because he mentioned that he pays good money for a good lead, or because she knew that was the only way to get him out of the place, like get him out of her apartment? Let me know in the comments. Replay crew, let me know in the comments as well. What did you think when she told him that, hey, they're going to arrest somebody and it has something to do with the aquarium downtown? I'm really curious. What do you think? All right. So the scene switches back to the club. Again, he's happy with Cleo at this moment. We also see this scene switching to what happens at the aquarium shop. So you can see we have probably all the police in the town, so surrounding the aquarium shop, and they're wanting to arrest the man there. Now, to me, it's very clear that he's not mentally there, okay? He's tied up his mother, who is hella abusive, by the way. And he has music on blast, and he's like dancing with this broom. Oh, no, it was a mop. He was dancing with this mop, and he has a vision in his head of what is going on. But real life, he has on his ski mask, he has this mop, and what else was going on? Yeah, he was doing all the things. And the police are like, come outside, put your hands up. They have the place surrounded, they're ready to shoot, and they eventually shoot, but it breaks the glass and all the things. And then the mom because he tied up his mom and the son come outside. And she's, no, don't anything, because her son, anyways, they don't. And they manage to arrest him without further incident. Then the scene switches again to Maddie talking to Judith about the arrest and asking her to ask her dad to give her a break on the rent. So we also have that scene as well. And then this is when we have this scene with Cleo and Slappy at the club. And this is right before he goes on for his set. But we also see a scene with Reggie. And for some reason, it's this, my uploading thing does not want to upload the Reggie picture. Like, I do want to upload the Reggie picture, but it is just not happening. But anyway, we see Reggie going outside, like in a back alleyway, and he is talking to a police officer in a car. He gives him an envelope and he starts spilling what has been going on. And he's, oh, yeah, the mom for the guy down in the aquarium, the abusive mother, she is very intent on blaming the Black man who was at the store that day when Tessie Durst was there. And that person happens to be Reggie. And she also happens to say, you know, he had a swollen eye, a black eye or something like that. So it's clear Reggie is going to be a target for what happened to Tessie Durst. So even though they have the son of the owner of the aquarium place in custody, it's clear they want to place it on Reggie. They want to put the blame on him. He gets that update. We see him go back inside and ask Cleo. He gives Cleo some money in an envelope. It's obvious it's money. And says to her, hey, drop this off. This is what you need to do. Is this at the order of Mr. Gordon? And he's just like, this, a request. And this isn't a request, sis. This is something you have to do. Now, because she wants to be in the good graces of Mr. Gordon, she does what she is told to do. So anyway, she gets to the place. Oof, she gets to the place. And it is clear that, what was I going to say? It is clear that the money is not just a money drop and go. It is actually a hit on the senator. It is payment for a hit on her, right? And it's clear these men don't know Cleo. They were expecting Reggie. But Reggie's trying to keep a low profile because word on the curb is they're looking for a Black man with a swollen eye as the reason why Tessie Durst went missing and is now dead. So I found it very interesting. But before I even get into the whole scene with Cleo, the scene also switches back to, when we see the Cleo money situation happening with Reggie, giving her the money to go drop off at these guys, we also see Slappy doing a good set. I wanted to mention that. It started off a bit rocky. It's clear he uses real life to influence his jokes. He's a Southerner. So him, being up north, it's a different environment. Some things can be seen as funny, some things aren't. And again, just remember 1966, that's what's going on. But anyway, the scene switches to these two, to Judith and Maddie, and we see them smoking together because Judith says to her, if you smoke with me, I'll ask my dad about the rent. And it was very interesting, that moment, because obviously she's high, both of them. And she finds Maddie's diaries, Judith. So Judith is, oh my gosh, these are diaries? And she's, yeah, they're just whatever. And she's like, some diaries are profound works of literary art. And then she drops the name of Anna Nin. Now, if you're a literature lover, you might have heard her name, maybe not, it's fine. Anna Nin is an author. Actually, I found, because I'm like, I know I purchased a book, not recently, but I purchased a collection of books and there was a copy of her work in there. And I have this little penguin mini cloth bound. And this one is A Spy in the House of Love. Again, it's by Anna Nin. She was saying that she reads her diaries every night. Judith was saying, and she started quoting the part she's remembered. And honestly, it just took me back to a time. Do you remember when you were in school? Because I had to do it. Like, you had to memorize poetry and you had to memorize like certain things and then you'd have to recite them. Yeah, there's so many poems that are in my head rent free just because of that school time. But again, this is set in 1966. So like, reading is her entertainment. So she remembers some of the things. And as she is rehearsing, recalling whatever the things she's memorized, we see bits of Maddie's life flashing on screen, right? And it was from her life as a wife at home, and things were just flashing. And the big question that came up for me in that moment is that it is clear Maddie was living like a surrealist life. Because remember, in the beginning of the episode, the thing starts with the quote, which is, nothing is less real than realism. And remember, she had a conversation with her boyfriend at the time's mother, who is this famous artist, about surrealism. And she's, I don't identify my work as such. But then it had me thinking, from that early scene to now we're nearing the end, I'm like, it is clear Maddie has not been living her authentic self. And will she move away from the surreality of her life? I was trying to like, is that even a word? But yes, it is. So we also get Cleo saying, remember earlier on in the quote, that it's clear she got her whole life pretending. This is the end part of that quote. You got your whole life pretending like that, didn't you, Maddie? Which is basically dressing up and looking good as if you didn't have a care in the world. So we see it's coming together. And I have to say, I love how the director and all these people just really pulled the story together. But anyway, as we have this whole thing happening, we also see the scene switching. So let me see. I have the picture for that loaded. Yeah. We also switch to this scene, which I was like, oh my gosh, this is wild. But when Cleo gets to the place, she drops off the money and she's dropping it off for the man who's in the front passenger seat to the left. And then there are two in the back. And she drops off the money and she just expects she's dropping off this package and she's leaving. And he's, nah, we were expecting the big fish. And since the big fish, Reggie, didn't show up, then we're going to have to work with the little fish. So she is essentially like this getaway driver. Make it make sense. It was just so crazy. I can't even imagine just being there in that moment. But anyway, so she's like this getaway driver. And we see her in the car. We see the two men in the back get out the car. She recognizes that they're at Senator Summers' house. So they are there to kill this woman. And anyway, so now they're in the car, they get out, they do whatever, and things don't go according to plan. But we also have the scene switching where Officer Platt goes to Maddie's house and he's like there to tell Maddie, oh, hey, by the way, they found the person and so on, and they have a person arrested and all those things. And then we see Officer Platt and Maddie getting a little bit cozy. So it was also very interesting seeing just Maddie taking this complete departure from her quote unquote picture perfect life. Not leaving her husband wasn't enough, but this definitely put the nail in the coffin. And then the other thing was, like I said, going back to Cleo's set, they show up to the senator's house. It doesn't go according to plan. Someone comes out and starts going pow at them. And she gets out of the car and she's running. And this is how the scene ends. Again, very wild, but this is the ending scene. Cleo, in her beautiful and brand new blue coat that she just got from Mr. Gordon, running away from the scene of a crime. Not alleged, of a crime. Like, it happened. And so we ended with Cleo running. But I'm very curious, y'all. If you watched episode 2 of Lady in the Lake, let me know what you think. Let me know your thoughts if you read the book. So if you read the book, Lady in the Lake, I'd love to hear from you too. If you didn't read the book, but you're watching the series, that's fine. I'd love to hear from you as well. I hope you'll join me next week, Monday, when we'll be recapping episode 3 of Lady in the Lake. So we'll be recapping episode 3. Episode 3 goes live on Friday. Yeah, I'm almost sure. It goes live on Friday. So I'll be coming back here to recap with you again. Again, it ended on a cliffhanger. They dropped the first 2 episodes. After episode 1, I really didn't care much to watch episode 2. Like, I was going to watch it, but I didn't have that urgency. But episode 2 gave me that urgency. To me, episode 2, we were like, things were happening. Things were happening. Like I said, we found Tessie Durst. We saw what happened in the aftermath of Tessie Durst with the questioning. We got the funeral. We saw the mom, had the breakdown. I said we had the police questioning. We have someone arrested. We see Cleo asking for a job. Cleo making up with Flappy and trying to get him a comedy gig. We see her stepping up and saying to Mr. Gordon, hey, I want more work. Let me know what you need. You can trust me. My only motive is to provide for my boys. We see her getting a job in which she is fleeing. Because again, it ends with her fleeing. And I'm just like, man, what a situation to get yourself in. I also think it is setting up for what will be the unfortunate end to Cleo. I think it's very clear to us now. If it wasn't clear before, I think it is clear as day now, but that is my opinion. Let me know what you think. Again, let me know if you are watching Lady in the Lake or if you've read the book. Now, as for rating, I would say I would rate episode 2. I would rate it a 7. I would rate it a strong 7, maybe going on 8, actually. Okay, I would rate this episode an 8. It was giving. The episode really was giving. I felt like it was doing the most. I was very happy it was going. Episode 1, watch my recap. You'll see my thoughts on that. But also let me know in the comments, what is your rating and review? So mine is 7 out of 10. So if it was a 5-star rating in the way we rate books, I would rate this a 4. I would rate this a 4. I feel comfortable giving it a 4-star rating. Thanks for watching, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again Monday, 2 p.m. Eastern time, 2 p.m. New York time. If you're outside of the US, just convert whatever time it is, 2 p.m. in New York. That's the time I'll be live on Monday, recapping the next episode in Lady in the Lake. Alrighty, friends.
Thank you so much for listening to the Reader's Couch podcast. Please subscribe to the show, share it with a friend, and take a few seconds to leave a rating and review. Until next time, stay lounging, stay reading, and whenever you're in doubt, go straight to your local bookstore or library. Thanks again for listening, and happy reading.